outside of movies like Code 3, I think the Hollywood presentation of EMS to the world is one of the most damaging things that we have going on right now, because
Hmm.
they make everything look like we're supposed to be heroes. And then they see us show up tired, disheveled, having run 14 calls, and we're like, hi. There's almost a dehumanizing tucked into the hero persona. So I think that we need to show people that we're human. However, I think we also use that to enable the victim card a lot more and say, well, we're heroes, so we should be getting XYZ. We are entitled to be treated like this and this and this. No, you're not.
This is A Silent War Within, the podcast dedicated to confronting the unseen mental health battles carried by our first responder and healthcare heroes. This show is about real stories, real struggles, and real ways to survive the storm and come out stronger on the other side. For too long, stigma has kept you silent, but this is your space to bravely break that silence, share vital insights, and build a community where your well-being truly comes first, because your service deserves unwavering support.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to A Silent War Within. Of course, we have my beautiful co-host, Michaela. Michaela, how are you today?
I'm wonderful. How are you, Kevin?
Good, good. And we've got a very special guest, as always, Daniel Mouring, who you guys likely know as Paramedic AF on all the social channels. Daniel, how are you doing today?
Great. How are you guys?
We
Doing
are
well.
fantastic, and this is our favorite days of the week because we get to record with somebody that we have wanted to talk to. So we're super excited you're here with us. Of course, for everybody listening, you can always find us on the social channels, The Silent War Within, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, all those places. And we stream on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and a few other smaller platforms that we've actually gotten some international listeners from. So we're excited about getting streamed in Australia and Italy last week. So that was
Oh,
actually pretty cool. Yeah. So Daniel, tell us about this paramedic AF. Like, what in your journey caused this name to be so radical, if you will, to some people? It's not radical to us. We were discussing before that we have a certain way that we talk to each other
Hmm.
that kind of takes people aback. So where did this AF come from? Tell us about your paramedic journey. Just tell us about you. We're interested to know who Daniel is versus paramedic AF.
Well, I don't openly discuss where I've worked, but the long and short of it is I have been a field paramedic my whole career. I've been in EMS total 13, almost 14 years, and almost 10 years now as a paramedic. Um, my I didn't have a grand vision for EMS until much more recently, as I started improving a lot of stuff in my own life and started realizing, hey, all of this self improvement stuff, all these things I'm learning, these concepts that I'm applying to my life, how cool would it be if we saw this applied on a grand scale to EMS? And so I have, I've kind of bounced around ideas for years. Well, then my wife and I, we've been together for a couple years now. She's also a paramedic. She's actually my other half to this whole project. We decided, we wanted to start a podcast. We wanted to start putting content out, and we struggled with a name. We tried so hard. And some of the name options we came up with, I have blocked from my memory because they were so corny. Um, but there's a podcast that I have listened to for years called Real AF, and it just dawned on me. It's like, huh, we could just steal that. It's perfect. Like, it's not excluding EMTs, but it's relatable and people will connect with it. So it was just kind of a wild idea, and it seems to have stuck.
It certainly did stick, for sure. So how'd you get into the paramedic thing? How did this journey occur? Was it like most of us where you just kind of were looking for something and fell in, or was it more intentional in your case?
So I'd been exposed to EMS back in Virginia where I grew up. I had a friend of mine who was a volunteer firefighter EMT, and he almost got me to join the fire department, but I was leaving for college, so I couldn't. And at the time, I had other, aspirations for what I might do with my life, and I quickly realized those weren't going to work. So I moved down here to South Carolina, and the family I'd moved in with, their son was a paramedic at a local agency. So I was like, I guess I'll give that another shot, see how that goes. So I went on a ride along, and I think our first call was a seizure, an actual like grand mal seizure. And I was like, okay, this is cool. I like this. Let's do this. So I paid my way through EMT school. Worked as an EMT for about 3 years before I got my paramedic, and I have had the time of my life. I've had a good career. I've had a lot of good friends, a lot of fun, and have been through the ringer on a lot of things too, and learned a lot that
Yeah,
fuel
sure.
what we're doing now.
Yeah. No, that is fantastic. I love that you are, and especially in the daily brief. The daily brief is one of my favorite things to see online. I don't know why, but there's a raw honesty to it, and you just give it like it is. And sometimes it can be kind. I mean, there's a few of those that have been kind of rough and been like, "This is stupid," you know. And I think that's really what connects you with our peers instead of that polished professionalism that we see so many people trying to put out. And I'm not hating. We've had the very polished professional. I think EMS Avenger is probably one of the most professional guys you'll meet. And when we interviewed him, that just shined through. I mean, he's so knowledgeable. He's a great guy. But you have a little bit different approach. You have a very unfiltered honesty. You're very raw. So where does that authenticity come from? Because sometimes, especially in the social media world we live in now, it's hard to find authenticity.
Well, the people who know me see that pretty much how I talk on TikTok is pretty much is how I talk in real life. If anything, I'm a little more censored on TikTok. But it really came from, my wife and I both, we looked out at the landscape of EMS content creation. And we said, there's so much emphasis on education, which is great, which is great. We always need better education. But people were either not talking about the day-to-day real life issues, or they would talk about them in such a way that it's like, okay, there's a problem, but we're not really dealing with any solutions. We're just bitching about a problem and then, carrying on with the rest of our lives and not really dealing with it. So the whole point has been to not to be a one-stop shop with all the answers, but to say, hey, here's the real world issues that we're dealing with. Here's examples of solutions. Here's mindsets that we can use to deal with these things. And then you apply it in your own way to where you work and what you're doing. And that's been the goal the whole time. And I think overall, that's pretty well how it's landed, hopefully.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what's happened. I think people resonate with that more than I more than I intentionally thought that it would. I, I really, and especially when we started doing this, I really thought, man, we're gonna get so much pushback because this, and you can attest to it. Up until about 5 to 7 years ago, like there was no talk about this. And then FirstNet got involved and Code Green gets involved, and you have all these organizations starting to pop up with mental health. But I thought that we were going to have some pushback, but because we're kind of have the same raw honesty about the things that we're dealing with, and our very first episode was my other co-host and I just bearing our souls and just telling what happened to us and our kind of, I don't know if you'd call it is PTSD, but I hate like referring to it as that at that. I don't know why I do, but that PTSD journey that we've kind of been on, and it was, I thought we would have a lot of pushback from people going, "Oh, I don't want to talk about this." But every single body that we have spoken with has been open and honest about very similar struggles, similar journeys, and it's really been good. And I think you have that same thing with being so authentic and so open and even raw and even sometimes harsh. Cause I mean, there's times when you've had to be harsh on topics that are important to us, and people gravitate to that. People like that. People like that somebody's willing to stand up and say, "Hey, that's enough of this BS. Let's just go on and squash that." So I like that. Does it ever feel like, so especially with content creation now and you're kind of on this journey and you're still a functioning paramedic, right? Are you still on the
Hmm.
truck?
Yes, I am.
So does it ever feel like it's an overwhelming mental load for you to do all these things and have all these coals in the fire?
Yes, in a way. I mean, I guess I'm a bit of a masochist for it because if I don't have it, I feel bored. I think it's actually synergized really well with the field. Like, yeah, the load with this is the editing, honestly. Like the going through and the processing everything, that's the wouldn't say stressful, but that's the bulk of the time. But the actual, thinking through this, putting stuff out there, to me, it just synergizes with what I do in the field. It keeps me accountable, but it allows me to show the people around me, hey, I'm actually doing what I preach. I am actually and I'm not perfect. I don't consider myself this, gift to EMS. Just I believe in being real and being authentic. So I don't preach about stuff if I'm not willing to back it up myself. So it really isn't that bad of a load in that sense. It's a lot of busy work though.
Have you started getting recognized at places? Because your follower count's pretty high in the social media world. So, I mean, have you been recognized yet? I got recognized for the first time ever about 3 weeks ago, and I was like, this is kinda cool that I got recognized by somebody. And we don't have just a huge ton of followers, but we have enough to have a little small community, which is what I was always aiming for. But just to be recognized out there, I was like, "Oh, somebody was watching me."
Yeah, I get it a little bit. I get it. It's not a consistent occurrence. But there's been a couple of people, even people that I've just been around because it's a small world, so we all run into each other even if we don't know
Mhm.
each other. But a few people who are just like, "Wait a minute, I know you," and I'm like, "Yeah, I've been here for the last 8 years. Like, have you not paid attention?" But that aside, but no, there's a little bit of it. And we're getting ready to do more stuff that's going to give us a little bit more publicity. So I think it's just going to gradually escalate. But I just think of we just think of ourselves as normal people that are,
That's right.
just putting stuff out there for whoever wants to use it.
And that's been the wild part, and the fun part of getting to interview people that I've now watched for years or looked up to, or, we've had social media for a little while now. So all these people that I've watched for all this time and they've been on the show, and I'm like, I asked that something similar to that line of questioning about their social media presence. And they're just like, we're just normal dudes. Like, this is just something we do for fun. And we just turned into something bigger than we thought it would be. So I always enjoy interviewing people that I watch online, and that's where I pull a lot of my guests because I think that social media is one of our biggest communication tools that we have. If you put the number of people that watch our videos in a room together, that's a huge crowd. Even at
Hmm.
even at 5, 6, 700, that's a huge crowd. So I really appreciate that you're brutally honest, and I appreciate what you do, and it really has resonated with people. Even more so value that you are still a normal guy and still a normal functioning paramedic, and that you're doing what you preach. That's awesome. And I think that raw honesty really does hit home with people because it does contrast us so sharply in the world that we live in today. Because we have a world that deceives us.
So, Daniel, let's get into the meat and potatoes of what we're going to talk about, okay?
Oh, that's she's from Mississippi. If you couldn't tell, that was Mississippi coming back out.
The
I'm here
meat and
for it.
potatoes, what it's all about. So, yeah, I work in, the Northeast region right now, and I cannot go one single day without talking to a patient. I can't even get a word out. Where are you from? I'm just writing on the whiteboard, and they're like, "Where are you from?" I'm like, "I didn't even say 2 words yet. I just said, 'Hey.'" But yeah,
It doesn't
so
take much, Michaela.
doesn't take much. So, let's talk about EMS culture, right? So, would you agree that still in EMS, mental health is still kind of like a hush hush topic?
To a degree, I think that it's either hush hush or we talk about it in ways that aren't healthy. But yeah, it's still a new thing.
Yeah, so what do you think that is like the biggest lie that we're told by the media, EMS culture that kind of leads to that PTSD burnout cycle?
I think it's the phrase you can't change it because I have heard that so many times whenever you complain about anything is, well, that's just the way it is. You can't change it, which, I mean, to be completely honest, is bullshit. But I think that wears people down and really drives a lot of people down and removes a lot of hope that people could have.
Yeah, so in your professional opinion, do you think that the job policies, administration, that sort of thing leads to more burnout, or do you think it's like patients and families?
Oh, here she goes.
I think it's both because I've experienced both. I've experienced the burnout of, literally I don't get paid enough to be talked to like this. I've been there And I've also been on the end of it this is ridiculous. Like, I'm just, whenever I voice a concern about something, I'm talking to thin air. I think it's one of those things that it's a cumulative effect. Any one piece of it by itself, okay, we can deal with it. But you bring it all together, little, I don't want to say microaggressions, that sounds weird, but like smaller occurrences that add up and just take you over that tipping point.
Have you dealt with any PTSD or burnout in your career?
I've definitely dealt with burnout to a degree. So I prefer referring to it as moral injury. I don't know if either of y'all are familiar with the guy Z Dog
Absolutely.
MD. Yep. So his video on moral injury, I think, was probably the most poignant, relevant video of the last decade and a half, honestly, because the term burnout, obviously we know what we're talking about when we say it, but it is used as a stick to beat us with. And oh, you're just burned out. It's a label that gets slapped on someone, and then suddenly they're no longer considered relevant for anything ever again. And I don't think that's right, and I don't think that's fair. But I think there's people that bring it on themselves too. I don't think it's just a one-way victim, ticket. So I've definitely experienced it with oh my God, I don't get paid enough to deal with this. I'm going to go do something else. As far as PTSD from it, I I honestly don't have a lot of issues with calls following me home. I have more religious trauma from my upbringing, which is a whole separate topic we could get into. I I'm able to compartmentalize, and I have been pretty early on. So most of the stuff that I am exposed to, thankfully, I'm not bragging about this. I'm saying this as I'm grateful for this, that it doesn't typically bother me that much. I tend to depersonalize in the moment, and then I can go have my feelings afterwards if I need to, and carry on with the day.
I think that one thing that we might need to touch on is that hero mentality that the culture really pushes on us. You know, you see like superhero and all these kids look up to you, and it's like the community thinks that you're heroes. You are a hero, but it's like that makes people think that there's no emotions behind the professional, that there's no burnout PTSD. You want to talk about that a little bit?
There's a couple of things on the hero topic I could talk about. So I do think that the persona that is projected to the public is way off, way wrong. I think that outside of movies like Code 3, I think the Hollywood presentation of EMS to the world is one of the most damaging things that we have going on right now, because
Mhm.
they make everything look like we're supposed to be heroes, and then they see us show up tired, disheveled, having run 14 calls, and we're like, hi. So I do think there's almost a dehumanizing tucked into the hero persona. So I think that we need to show people that we're human. However, I think we also use that to enable the victim card a lot more and say, well, we're heroes, so we should be getting XYZ. We are entitled to be treated like this and this and this. No, you're not. It's not your job is to not be a shitty human being. And we can communicate authenticity without sounding like we're just bitching and complaining about every single inconvenience, because that's not right or healthy either.
Say that louder for the people in the back.
I know we're not gonna get paid for this, but Code 3 was an amazing movie.
It was.
I enjoyed it so much. I told my husband I watched it without him, and he was upset, and I was like, "We're gonna have to go back and watch it because it was a really good movie."
Well, if it makes any difference, I did reach out to Rainn Wilson's publicist. I have not yet heard back.
We're not gonna interview Rain. I would
Probably
die.
not.
I'm trying that too. That's a tough cookie to crack.
Yeah, I mean, you never know until you shoot your shot.
Yeah.
Do you know,
Yeah.
like, I know this is completely off the subject, but do you know those people who will forever be one character in your brain? He will
Mhm.
always be Dwight. I saw Dwight
Yeah.
the entire show. It's like Harry Potter. Harry Potter will always be Harry Potter.
Yeah, you're right.
Yep.
You're right.
Yep.
I wanted
Absolutely.
somewhere in the movie for him to say, beats Bears Battlestar Galactica. I was praying for it.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. I saw the same thing watching that movie.
I will say, sorry, my brain tracked back to the hero thing for a second too. I think something that where we abuse it is we adopt the persona in a way that furthers the moral injury topic. And we start getting insulted by the way we're being treated. And everybody has to go and wear all the t-shirts and they have to say everything on social media all the time. And if there's a person that dies somewhere in the world, they're like, we've got you, brother. Like, dude, you didn't know that person. Like, I appreciate being empathetic, but this trying to use it as a badge every time something bad happens to somebody in EMS, come on, get over yourselves. This is not helping us at all. We're not heroes. Like, okay, sure, the rest of the world can see what we do and appreciate that about us, but we know deep down we're people doing a job who
Mm-hmm.
either love it or hate it, but we're normal people.
And the thing that was brought out, I can't remember if it was Greg, who is Shade Tree Cardiology, or EMS Avenger, but one of them made the statement that we've got to stop teaching our EMT students that you're a hero, because 90% of your calls is going to be picking up memo off the floor,
Mm-hmm.
or the diabetic, or all the what we quote unquote call the boring calls.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's just a normal call, nothing exciting. But we infuse their brains with this magical image of you're a hero. What you're doing is so heroic, and you're going to save lives. Not every day,
Mm-mm.
maybe once a month, depending on where you work, maybe more. But in reality, you're just somebody doing a job. Chill out with the hero thing.
Mm-hmm.
I feel the same way you do about that. That's devastating to the EMT student that gets in there thinking they're going to come out and do heroic things, and then they're on the dialysis truck, or
Yep.
whatever they get assigned with, and you're like,
They're bringing the 92-year-old grandma back from the rehab for the 18th time because she's got a UTI to the hospital.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All been there, done that.
Really a hero there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you feel like, Daniel, on all your socials, do you feel like that all of your content is pretty well received, or do you feel like there are some people that are like Debbie Downers or like really negative about your type of content?
There are people that are that way. I I enjoy trolls because I enjoy kind of playing back with them. So most of them have shut up. I don't really have any consistent people causing issues. Most people, they either appreciate it and are edified in some way, or they're just apathetic. And they're just like, yeah, okay, cool. Like, they just slip back into that negative loop of it's never going to change.
yeah, absolutely.
I think that sometimes, like, everyone is different. And I know this is the same in EMS because it's the same with nurses. But, like, I feel like me and you are a lot of the same. So, like, those people who have, like, this super overarching empathy, it's like you just kind of roll your eyes at. But unfortunately, like, you know, some people are okay with having traumatic things happen to them and they're fine with that. And then some people just can't take it. And there is a balance, but I'm one of those people where if we run a code and it's a bad code, yeah, I have my own way of dealing with it, but also I'm not like super overly empathetic. You're not gonna
Mhm.
see me crying in the stock room, certain things like that. So I think that it's good to have that balance, but what do you think about that?
So I'm not one to judge how people manage their mental health at all.
Right.
But I do think we need the honest conversation with people of, hey, if you can't handle it, there's nothing wrong with that. There's no shame in it, but you can't keep doing this job. If you are someone who emotionally connects with every single patient you have, you are going to turn into a statistic. And that is just not healthy for anybody. It's not healthy for you. It's not healthy for your patients. It's not healthy for your partners. It's just not healthy at all. So Yes, we all should be more mindful of our mental health and we should be more aware of our emotions. However, if you are someone who leans heavily into the empathy, leans heavily into the emotions, and that's how you exist, then this is probably not the right field for you
Mm-hmm.
because you are going to have your sensibilities offended all of the time. You are going to build a burden on yourself that is just going to it's going to kill you. Honestly, it really
And
is. Those are the people I'm worried about the most.
I really wish that what you're saying was in a textbook for EMS when they start, because if you led with that, maybe there's this chance that you weed out some of the folks that go, "Oh, I never thought about that."
Hmm.
And that's a big thing. Like the people who typically, or at least from personal experience, the people who fall out of this profession are the people that we're talking about that become the statistic. It's not the guys that, you talk to any of the 10, 15, 20-year guys, and sure, we've got some very traumatic and horrifying stories that we can probably relive and probably do in an unhealthy way sitting around a crew table somewhere. But we're still doing it. We're still coming to work every day. We're still doing our due diligence to take care of patients and do what we need to do. One of the things about that Code 3 movie that I was like, "Oh, yeah, I've been there," and I was sitting around watching it with our entire family. I was watching it with Michaela's parents, a matter of fact, and Michaela's father-in-law was like, "Is that really you? Like, do you feel that way?" I was like, "Well, not exactly that way, but I certainly understand what he's saying." Like, I've been
Hmm.
there numerous times throughout my career because nobody tells you exactly what you just said. Nobody brings that information forward until you're actually in the midst of it. And I think if we led with that, we would see a difference in the people that we had in EMS, and we would see a difference in the retainment of our folks.
We honestly think we need more barriers to entry for this job. There should be more catch points that weed out people because the pumping in as many people as we can to just try and fill empty seats is part of what contributes to this problem.
I call that the warm body mentality.
Hmm.
Are you breathing?
Yeah,
You got a pulse? You can either be a Walmart greeter or an EMT. You pick.
you make about the same either way.
So that's true. That's exactly right. Tell us about some of what would be a better barrier to entry for you. Do you have any ideas about what that would be? I'm very interested to hear your take on this.
Well, I think, and it's not something that I've sat down to write out all the thoughts on, but and I think it
Sure.
it varies from EMT school versus paramedic school. I think those are two separate catch points that you should have. I think for EMT school, the heavier focus needs to be on your psyche, on your baseline mental wellness, because we kind of needed to see how you are unfiltered before you have come in and been exposed to all of this. And see, are you someone at a baseline who is relatively emotionally stable? If you were on multiple medications for bipolar on top of depression, anxiety, all these things, you have a SI history, you probably shouldn't be in this job. And that's not a judgment. That is not saying that you're any less of a person. It is not being uncaring. It's just this field is going to take a person like that and beat them down and wear them down to absolutely nothing. And someone should have the compassion to tell them, hey, for your own sake, run. Don't do this.
Mhm.
So for EMT school, I think we need to focus on that specifically. For paramedic school, I would say yes, there's still that element because we need to make sure people are doing okay. We're going to give you more responsibility. We need to make sure that you're in the mental space that you can handle that extra responsibility. But also, there needs to be some assessment of merit of clinical performance. Like, are you a
Mhm.
EMT that has a documented history of clinical issues that are not being resolved? Well, then no, you really shouldn't be coming into paramedic school. Which I understand that's hard to do because workplace privacy and all of that stuff. But something along
Yeah.
that line, we really need to look at.
Yeah. Or
And
we
I
could
don't
just
know. Go ahead, Kevin.
I was gonna say, or we could set them up on a call with customer service or put them in heavy traffic and see how it goes.
Get out of my brain, Kevin. Because what I was about to say is for nurses and for EMTs, paramedics, I wish there was a way to test their emotional intelligence during times of crisis. Because a lot of these people entering into the workforce are 20 years old. They don't even know who they are as a person.
hmm
And then they go into these crisis situations they've never seen before. They are dealing with situations in the hospital that they are not barely even trained to do. And then they stove up. They cannot make a conscious thought through the chaos. There should be some tests that we could do, put them in New York traffic or something and see how they do with that first.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, I'm a firm believer in the grocery cart test. Are you the kind of person that puts your cart back, or do you leave it next to somebody else's stuff? If we can identify that, then we can
Yes.
probably identify if you should be in here.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I hate those people that leave the cart
Or
out.
like, you never see this anymore. I thought I was gonna get shot the other day at the grocery store because I went up to an old man and asked him, "Did he need help getting his groceries in his car?" He jumped. Like, it's just a different world today than it was 20 years ago, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, true.
absolutely.
Human decency also bleeds over into the workforce. Like, are you going to be a good teammate, a good partner?
So Daniel, another thing I'm very interested in is, and I'm stealing this from Michaela because I'm just reading through everything that's sitting in front of me. And what do you think one of the most unhealthy coping strategies that we have? What's our mechanism that's probably the most unhealthy, or what do we turn to the most often? I know my personal answer, but what's yours?
Chasing cheap dopamine hits, honestly, because that manifests a
Oh yeah.
variety of different ways. But that's what we do. Is that's our Because what does everybody do in between calls? Glued to their phones, scrolling TikTok, watching videos. They're not engaging in reality. And so I think the cheap dopamine hits, that's what drives alcoholism. That's what drives substance abuse. It creates a lot of disconnect in relationships because relationships are hard work. And if you're constantly seeking cheap dopamine hits, you're not going to want to work on a relationship.
That's true.
That could be a whole episode in itself.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot that you could go. I mean, you could chase rabbits for days down that path, and that's some more Mississippi for you. So,
There's a wonderful, wonderful book. It is not long and it is written for the average reader. It's called Dopamine Nation by Anna Lemke. One of the most eye-opening reads that you can ever imagine. That and The Anxious Generation. I can't remember the name of the author on that one. Um, but if you have kids, the book The Anxious Generation is by far one of the best things you can ever read.
You know, that's one thing that we don't talk about a lot on this podcast. We've hit on it a few times, but I've recently started a new role in the hospital. I've done almost every single job in the hospital that you can do, but I'm currently a nursing supervisor at the hospital that I work at. And one thing that I did not even realize before this is that I have ringtone anxiety. So
hmm
in my job, yeah, so if the phone rings, it's something bad, like somebody needs something or it's a code about to happen or something like that. So every time I hear that phone ring, I have anxiety. Like I'm like, "Oh my gosh," you know? And like we don't talk about that a lot. We don't talk about like anxiety, and how
Mhm.
that bleeds over into the workforce a lot. What Daniel, do you have to deal with anxiety at your job? What's some anxiety triggers for you?
So it's funny you bring up the phone thing. I hate talking on the phone normally. And the reason is before I got into EMS, I worked at a inbound call center. So literally my entire day was the phone ringing, 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 and God knows what you were going to get on the other end of it. That was far more stressful than anything I've ever done in EMS. For
hmm
me, as far as anxiety about the job, I don't think that I could tell you any one particular thing. Anxiety for me ends up being a lot more relational. And like, obviously, like most males, I struggle with vulnerability in general. When I'm at work, I'm able to put on the professional face, the professional me.
hmm
The professional me just doesn't get anxious about a lot of stuff, but that's because I have that role to fall into. When I'm out in
hmm
public, just, walking around Walmart by myself, it's really weird. And I just don't want to talk to anybody because I don't have a role in that environment. But if I have a role to fill, cool, I can latch on to that and I'm okay. Um, But I also realize that I'm a little narrow spicy, so my processing of emotions like that is a little different than maybe your average Joe. Um, but no, I think that's another. I think this is a topic that we need to have with incoming people, with incoming students. So my wife, we both work full time in the field, and she is a full time training coordinator, which includes teaching a full time EMT class for the agency that she works for. And we're starting to see this in some of the students as they're coming in. They're just like, well, how do you deal with the unknown? And I'm like, why did you apply? Like, that's kind of the point of this job is you're going to deal with the unknown. You need to have some way to ground yourself in that and deal with the unpredictability. The number one thing that I try to pass on to students is breathe. If you're getting stressed about something, stop, take a couple of deep breaths, don't do anything, and then carry on. Because if you can control your breathing, you can control pretty much any stress that you're going to encounter on this job, honestly. So, no, I think the anxiety conversation we need to have, if it's managed, cool. Or if you need some additional coping mechanisms with it, awesome. If it's something that dominates your life, again, we need to have the discussion that this might not be a good profession for you because you are going to forever deal with the unknown. And you have to be able to thrive in that. Otherwise, it's going to be pretty messy.
Mm-hmm. You're
Plus, I
exactly
mean,
right.
I know that we can't weed out all of this, but another thing is
Mm-mm.
like nurses are short, EMTs, paramedics, we're very short right now. There's a nursing shortage, healthcare crisis shortage. If you're not a dependable employee, if you've got like a lot of chronic health issues, this is a job where you can't just call out 5 minutes before your shift. Like, there may not be a person to fill your place.
Mm-hmm.
So, a lot of times, I tell people, like, take care of yourself first. If you're the type of person who you have really chronic health issues and just one day you might wake up and be like, I'm not mentally okay to go to work, nursing might not be the job for you. EMT might not be the job for you because
Mm-hmm.
you're going to see something on your shift that's stressful, that's a trigger. And if you can't deal with that, well, unfortunately, there are jobs everywhere. So you might need to work in a clinic or go work somewhere like that.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Do inpatient care, or if you're a paramedic, go work in like mobile integrated health. Like, you've got a lot of options out there that are low stress, low impact, not that big of a deal. No, I agree. I agree. I mean, yeah, there's days where you get up and you really don't want to go to work and you're just not mentally in a good space. And sure, I'm a big believer in mental health days. However you need to take them, take them. But I think more your point is if there's a chronic issue, then the conversation needs to change on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So one of the things you mentioned a little earlier, I want to unpack it a little bit. Has being a public figure online and being honest the way you are, has it ever caused any negative consequences for you? Have you had that troll that like, I'm going to call your agency? Because I've seen a few people have that struggle, like somebody call their agency like, hey, this guy's representing you guys and all this stuff. So have you ever dealt with that?
Not specifically. So when back, my wife and I first started the whole project almost 2 years ago now, and we made it very, very clear up front that we were never going to discuss in any way, shape, or form where we work, or even largely where we have worked. Sure, I'm sure if somebody went digging, they could find a public record of where I worked, but I don't advertise that. And my bosses actually appreciate that. Like, I actually had a conversation with one of my, upper administrators the other day, and he came to me. He said, "Dude, man to man, I love what y'all are doing." He's like, "I absolutely love it." He's like, "I have some people that will occasionally come along and say, he's talking about us, right?" And I'm just like, "No, he's talking about EMS as a whole. This is good. We need this." So I was actually surprised by that. My bosses aren't just neutral; they actually are supportive of it. I haven't had any threats made yet. Keyword being yet. Oh, it still waits to be seen.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have anything that you do that really protects your peace? Like, what is your almost like hedge of protection? Like, where do you go to become the recluse that we all sometimes so desire to be in need?
Um, I'm generally pretty good about wherever I am being able to carve out some peace and quiet. So, like, even if I'm on shift, I work a 24/72 schedule, which is honestly one of the best schedules I've had in EMS, even though 24s are getting really old. So, I've gotten really good over the last few years of when I'm not on a call, I go and I change my shoes. I put on some music. I'm watching something. I have books. I have so many things to divert my attention that I want to do that it lets me recharge a little bit so that that downtime is very, 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 very precious to me. At home, I mean, I'm usually have a decent bit of time at home where if I need to just lock myself away for a bit, I'm fine. We've got 6 cats and a dog here, so there's plenty of therapy animals to go around.
That's true.
But yeah, I think the biggest thing I do to protect my mental space is engage in things that aren't related to EMS. I have other hobbies. I read all other different kinds of books. I listen to business oriented podcasts. There's so many different things I engage on to keep myself from getting just lost in the world of EMS because that's a whole problem all on its own.
You know, I'm not sure if you're familiar with this account, but there's a guy, his name is Jason, and he does A Note from Dad. He's shorter guy, bald headed. He literally has become the internet dad for so many people. He's just giving that kind of fatherly advice. And it's not necessarily EMS related, but one of the things we talked about, and I think is so important to bring back up, is it is so important for us to separate ourselves from our profession. Our profession doesn't define us. And a lot of times we fall into that identity crisis of I'm Kevin the paramedic, or you're Daniel the paramedic, and creator, and all these titles that we wear. It's important to realize you can just be you. Like it's okay to just separate from that work life.
Okay, just a side tangent, Kevin. It bothers me so bad when I see people out in public and I know, yeah, I'm probably going to get some flack for this. I do not care. If you have your stethoscope hanging up on your car, we're not friends. If you have your badge, we're not friends. If you have if you have a nurse bag and you have nurse written across your shirt and a mug that says nurse, we're not friends.
She's
I'm
probably
not
a
a nurse when
CNA.
I'm not probably, yes, a pharmacy tech.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get so much flack for that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I'll be right there with you because I feel the same way. The whole Rescue Ricky thing, like I don't wear EMS stuff outside of work. I don't. I have like a
No.
little tiny bumper sticker on the side of my car that's like a funny about EMS, and that's it. Like, no, no.
As far as I go now is shirts like these where it's just like peer support or mental health stuff because I am really passionate about that.
Hmm.
But I used to be, and down here we call them Rescue Randys, and I've heard Rescue Ricky too. But I was a Rescue Randy for about the first year and a half of my career. Like, went and bought all the EMS T-shirts. I did have my stethoscope hanging over my mirror. Like, I was that guy. And after about a year of it, I was like, this just gets old. Like keeping
Hmm.
up this like always this mentality of being always on call. Like that's kind of what you fall into. Is I'm always a paramedic, so I'm always looking for the wreck to happen in front of me, and I'm looking to stop, and I'm offering services everywhere I go and telling people what I do. I'm like, it's just exhausting. Just chill out.
Hmm.
It's yeah.
The in code 3, the nurse that stops to help the paramedics. Oh my God, I was laughing so much.
That was the best.
We've
That was
all
the
been there.
best. We've all
Keep
been
in
there.
mind, do you stop or like one time I was at the gym and this guy passed out. I'm the type of nurse I was like, he'll be fine. He needs to drink some water. He'll be fine. I'm not getting off the treadmill for that. He'll be fine.
He
If
just had a vasovagal. He'll be fine.
he's
He'll be
got his
fine.
eyes
Just give him
open,
some
he's fine.
time.
He's fine.
It'll buff. It's fine. It'll buff.
Yeah,
They're
that's
like,
right.
should we call 911? I'm like, please don't. He's fine. He just needs to sit down for a minute.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you feel like the way that you present information, the way that you kind of tell stories, and the way that you kind of have this outlet Do you feel like it helps you in the things that you've encountered or seen or are frustrated with? Do you feel like it's a good outlet for you to kind of share that with other people?
I think it's a combination. It does help me, I'd say, stay in a right frame of mind and be purposeful in how I'm running calls and not get too, again, I don't like the term burned out, but to not get too apathetic. Does that make sense? I mean, we all have days where we're more, gung ho than others. I think it helps me with learning to articulate because I'm very ADD and I can talk about 14 different threads all at the same time, but actually having to bring it all down and say, okay, here's actually what I mean. I think has been very good and has helped a lot. And I think that more people should do it. No, we don't need every Tom, Dick, and Harry telling us 20 different things that we all need to do and that we never agree on anything. But we all do have a voice. We all should use it. And guess what? If you use your voice correctly, you pick the right battles, cool. People actually resonate with it. And you usually don't get in trouble. If you're doing it in good faith and you're speaking the truth and you're being articulate, you're usually not going to get in trouble for it.
Unpopular opinion. I think that ADHD in nursing and healthcare is a superpower. I have a little bit of ADHD, I think, undiagnosed, and
Excuse me, a little
a
bit.
little bit, a little bit neurospicy. But I can, yeah, like when you have 6 patients, I love working on med surg because I'm constantly busy.
Hmm.
You can have all those things that people need, and they're all right here, and you'll get them all done by the end of your shift. But they're like, "How do you remember all that stuff?" You'll be doing 12 different things. You'll be like, "Bed 12 needs a glass of water. Bed 2 still needs a warm blanket." Like it's all locked in here, still trapped.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think my ADD has gotten worse and it's now into the forgetful ADD. So if I don't write it down, either on a glove, I carry a Sharpie so I can write like on the patient sheet. If I don't write it down, it's gone. I'm in a
Same.
different planet.
I have literally had to start using. I was talking to somebody about this that works with me, and she was giving me all these helpful tips and tricks and apps, and I was like, "Well, I use this," and I was showing her like the Apple Reminders app
Hmm.
that just is naturally programmed on the phone. If somebody, I'm in a leadership position now, but if somebody tells me something they need me to be working on or they need me to solve for them, if I don't write it down right then, it's gone.
Hmm.
It's not going to happen. And there's a lot of duties to being a leader, and if I don't start writing some of it down, somebody's going to get missed. I mean, it's just, and it's happened enough where I'm like, okay, I've learned myself.
That
Got to
app
write it
has
down.
been that app has been my saving grace. Like I
Mm-hmm.
rediscovered it, like a month or so ago, and I was like, oh my god, this is exactly what the fuck I need because I'm gonna die if I
Yeah,
don't.
yeah. And I told somebody I was like, if I ever lose my phone, come check on me because I'm not all right. My life that has no purpose now. I don't know where I'm supposed to be. I'll just be sitting in a room in a chair spinning in the middle of it and just waiting for somebody to come tell me what to do.
Just rocking back and
I
forth.
actually, Daniel, you talked about like dopamine hits. I actually just, so back in college, I broke my phone and I refused to get it fixed. So I went like 4 months without a phone and I loved it. And I'm really thinking about going back to a flip phone because if you let those reels keep going, they just could, it never stops. You have such a hard time being like, this is my last video and then I'm going to sleep.
Well, it's
Hmm.
literally doom scrolling. I mean, you'll spend half the time. I make the joke, and it's a funny, but it's partially true as well. I'm like, I don't know if I would remember how to use the bathroom if I didn't have my phone.
Well, something I have done periodically myself, and that I encourage a lot of people to do is, if you feel like you don't have time for something, you don't have time to exercise, you don't have time to read, whatever, go look at your screen time use on your phone. That will tell you very, very, very quickly how much time you actually have. And it's pretty, it hurts your feelings. It hurts mine quite
It
regularly.
does.
Now,
So so just
you're talking about a flip phone. The side
ugh.
note, there's actually a company called the Light Phone, and it's literally like a basic touchscreen, like the old Kindles, like the black and white Kindles, and it literally just text, call, has a little calendar, an alarm clock, and that's pretty much it. No social
My dream
media.
phone.
It is awesome. I want to get one of these days. Anyway, sorry.
So, Daniel, if you had to like sum up your entire social media, right? What would
Mm,
you want the one thing to be that you let your listeners know? What's your one impact statement?
Things aren't going to get better on their own. You have to do the work, take the initiative to make your life better. There is no one coming to save you. There is no one that is going to magically fix your life. There is no one's going to magically fix this career. All have to start with ourselves, fix, or at least start to fix, never perfectly fix ourselves, but start on that. And then once you start taking responsibility for your life and making it better, you will start to see everything downstream of that start to fall in place. We don't live in a
Mm.
vacuum. Everything is all connected. So start with yourself, fix yourself, and then we can start addressing everything else.
That's amazing. That's good.
Yeah, absolutely. So, in closing up, Daniel, I think that this has been an amazing interview. I don't know if I always have problems seeing myself in a leadership role, that title. I don't like that title. I always say that I'm a student of leadership, but you are absolutely leading a charge in what I feel like is the EMS culture. And I think that our listeners, your listeners, just people in general, especially the EMS community, that resonates with them. Do you have any words of hope that you can share with us as we close?
I really do believe, and I mean this, I do believe that EMS can become something amazing. We talk about the way things used to be, the glory days. I'm a firm believer that we can actually do better than the good old days. We can build a much better future for ourselves, but we can't do it while we're infighting and chasing cheap dopamine hits and not taking personal responsibility for our own actions, our own mindsets, and how we address these problems. So, yes, the hope is there if we're actually willing to do the work.
And I am so thankful for you and your sense to not accept the status quo. That's the one thing I got, researching your content, which I've watched for a while, but anytime we're having a guest, I like to go through and just really dig in a little bit and find out as much as I can. But I really appreciate that you are not a status quo guy. You're not going to let it stay like it is. You do have the hope that it can be better. Give us your shameless plug. Tell us where we can find you. Tell us any projects you're working on. This is my favorite part. I wish I would have started this 10 years ago because I've gotten so many great resources and even your book recommendations. I wrote them down just so I could go and find them. I think I'm up in the 20s. I think I don't read, but listened to 20-ish books over recommendations just in the last 5 or 6 months because people come on and give book recommendations. I'm like, oh gosh, if I would have had this 10 years ago, man, what a different career I would have had.
Yeah,
So
so I
give us
mean,
the shameless plug. Tell us all your channels.
so we are most active on TikTok and YouTube, and you can just search at Paramedic AF. That's the easiest way to find us. I'm slowly getting back to posting on Facebook. I deleted my personal Facebook account, best decision I ever made. So I'm getting back in the habit of just logging into that one so I can do some things now and then. But TikTok, YouTube are where all of the bulk of our content is. And I had somebody ask me the other day, like, well, is there a point where you're going to stop? And short answer is no. Like, Michelle and I are going to be doing this as long as we can. And hopefully, when other business projects and stuff come to fruition and we can afford to actually hire some people to help, then we will just keep pumping out more because this is stuff that's not going away and it's not going to be solved overnight. So keep following. We're here to stay. We got, numerous things we would like to do when we have the time, but we're not going anywhere.
And that's Paramedic AF, right?
Yep. Paramedic as
Paramedic
fuck.
AF. That's it. There it is.
Really what it stands for is that there's no alter meaning. That's just what it stands for.
That
No,
is what
that's
it
it.
stands for. Yep. That
Okay,
is
all right,
That's
100%
it. That's it. Yeah.
Somebody actually told me that have you ever seen the Vital AF, the tube feeding? It
Mm-mm.
says Vital AF. It's just a nursing thing. It's in the hospital. Everybody jokes because it's called Vital AF. It actually stands for something, the AF. And I was like, oh, I thought it was just this is Vital AF for life.
Yeah.
Bless it.
That tracks with her mentality. Well, Daniel, thank you for joining us. We've had a great time. I really do appreciate everybody that has been so supportive to say yes to come on a show that 4 months ago nobody knew anything about. So I appreciate you and coming on. And of course, for our listeners, you can find us on all the social media channels: TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. And we also have a website, asilentwarwithin.com. You can check us out there. All of our episodes are listed there as they post. They automatically post to the website, which is super nice and super helpful. I was doing it by hand for a long time until I found the little plug-in you can just put on your website, which was great. So, as always, guys, be safe. Take care of your mind. We'll talk soon. And hope to see you next week.
Nice.
Bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to A Silent War Within. If this episode resonated, please subscribe, leave a review, and share with someone who needs to hear it. Remember, you're not alone and your well-being matters. It's time to end this silent war.